Alrighty, Dog from Air fans. Welcome back to the channel. I, as always, am Evan Benton, and I am joined on this lovely occasion by my wife, Dani. Say hi.
Hello.
And we're finishing our series on moving to Mexico. The first video was dealing with the logistics of selling our homestead and just everything that went into that. And this time we're going to be talking about the process of moving to Mexico. And because she is Danner, the planner, I'm going to let her take the lead on this. Um, and I'll just chime in when I can. But take it away, Danner.
Okay, so moving to another country, there's a lot of logistics. Some of it we could plan for ahead of time. Some of it we did plan for ahead of time, and all of the information, even on official websites, was not accurate. And so we had to make a lot of adjustments and figuring out. But this is just sort of a overview of all the steps that were happening concurrently while we were selling the house. So the first thing we did was we set a date. Sort of arbitrary, not really. I wanted to be out by the end of the year of the country, and our date got pushed back at one point. So we did set a date, and then we set a date like 2 or 3 weeks later. I don't remember. But on the second time, when we set the second date, we said, regardless of if the house is sold by that point or not, we're going to go. And we did actually end up leaving about a week before the house sold. So I can explain that briefly. I'm going to try to make all of this as brief as possible, and then if y'all find any of this interesting or want more details about things, we can do that in another video. So we set a date. Evan gave notice at his job about a month before, and then the remaining photography jobs that I hadn't already gotten coverage for out of fear of not being able to shoot due to the New Orleans city mandate, I continued to get those rescheduled and or either rescheduled before we left or transferred over to another photographer. So it was a continuation of that, which I had already been doing prior to deciding to move because of the mandate and the fears of not being allowed in the venues. So yeah, I lost a lot of income because of that. I lost a lot of photography jobs. That's a bummer, but part of it. And fortunately, I was able to keep all of my clients and associates happy during that process.
I'm tempted to say keep your DNA intact, but
That too. So then the next step involved going to the Mexico consulate in New Orleans. So the first step of moving to Mexico starts before you cross the border. We had a hard time starting that process because they apparently don't answer their phones. That's apparently a thing, I guess, with the Mexico consulates. So it took us a while to just get an appointment, and then we brought in a bunch of paperwork, and there was more things that we needed to do with that paperwork. So all in all, once we got an appointment and we got in there, I would say it took 2 to 3 hours.
oh yeah, the appointments. Yeah.
And then we left with our visas in hand.
And the only reason it took 2 or 3 hours is because you had to sit there and
I had to go through and highlight things, which they didn't tell you ahead
we
of
had
time.
to do we had to do the consulate's job for them. We had anyway.
Yeah. So I would say if we had been fully prepared prior to coming into the appointment, it would have taken about an hour. There was just I thought there was going to be like a full interview, which is what I'd read online that some people experienced, but basically they just asked us where we're going, how long we're staying, do we want to work, and they have us sit. She takes the paperwork back to the consulate, comes back, takes our photos, and prints out little stickers that she puts in our passports. Should also note that we already had renewed our passports. American passports are good, I believe, for 10 years, and we decided in late 2020 or early 2021
December. So
to we had gone through the process of renewing our passports.
and you wanted to change your name. That's why you partly.
That's yeah. And so
because we got married. So.
yeah, I had to sort of wait to do that after we got married, and I got my ID updated to Benton, and then we got new passports, which give us 10 years. New passports, and we obtained temporary residency visas to Mexico. It's a little confusing. So the sticker that they give you before you cross the border in your passport is good for, you have to cross the border within 6 months. And then, so we told him the date that we were going to cross the border, early December. And then once you cross the border, you have 30 days to do the next steps, which can only be done from Mexico after crossing the border. And it's actually a completely different Mexican government agency. So there was some misinformation that we were given on the New Orleans side and the Mexico side. And, I think even she's like, well, we're a different government agency, so
Bureaucracy.
you have to talk to them about that.
She made it sound a lot harder than it would.
She did, yeah. The Mexican consulate made it sound like I wouldn't be able to work at all, but that's not true now that we're down here and getting that sort of figured out, which I'll explain later. So then,
well, and then as an American citizen, you can just go on a tourist visa, right?
That's true. Yeah, we could have gone for
6 months.
a 6-month tourist visa. A lot of people do the digital nomad border hopping thing, where you just have to cross a border either north or south of Mexico and then come back. The reason that we opted to not do that is I am very anxious, and I didn't want to deal with only having 6 months and then the possibility of hopping the border and not being able to hop back. So that was not going to fly with me.
Which is covered in our last video with House Resolution 4980.
Sure, that's
right?
part of it too.
Yeah, and then our fears turned out to be founded when the Mexico just. I don't know. I'm not really following it super closely.
I've been following it a little bit.
They changed
right
the requirements.
after we made the decision to get temporary residency visas instead of the 6-month tourist visas, all these people in these Mexico groups that I had joined are saying, hey, I'm not getting 180 days. I only got 18 days. I only got 3 months. I didn't get 6 months, so it's... and at the same time, I think it was like 2 weeks after we got our temporary residency visas, they actually increased the financial requirements as well.
Yeah.
So Mexico's going through a slight...
Just weird, arbitrary.
Some changes in their visa requirements. So I didn't want to be at the whim of the whichever agent we got when crossing the border and saying, no, you don't get 180 days this time, you only get a week, so I just didn't want any surprises like that. So I'm very glad that we went for the temporary residency rather than the 6-month tourist visa, which is now not a guaranteed 6 months apparently. But again, we don't have any personal experience with that. That's just what I've been reading in the groups that I'm in. So our temporary residency visas are good for 1 year. After a year, we can renew for 1 to 3 years for a total of 4 years. And then after you've been a temporary resident for 4 years, you can apply for permanent residency. There are other ways to get permanent residency earlier, but I don't think we're going to do that. I don't remember. I was just rereading it again last night, but I don't think we qualify for that. So we would have to be temporary residents for 4 years, at which point we would renew for permanent residency. So back to requirements. So after we got the little visa in our passport, then we had to, finish the process of selling our house and figure out what to do with everything. So the next step was to sort and sell almost all of our belongings. We took everything in our house and shed and grouped them into 3 categories: to sell, to package for long-term storage, / shipping to either Mexico or Japan, wherever we end up after about a year, or 3 going with us in the car. We decided to not rent a trailer. We did bring a trailer with us when we moved from Oregon to New Orleans. We had a hitch installed on our Grandma Mobile, our little 4-door Toyota, but we decided to not bring a trailer with us to Mexico for various reasons. We might end up in Japan. What good would it do to bring a bunch of furniture down here when we're most likely going to be renting furnished places and short-term rentals and doing house sitting? So we didn't really need a trailer.
Everything we own is books and video games.
Yeah. So we packaged sentimental things and things that we could live without for at least probably a year, potentially up to 2 years. All that was put into 20 small boxes. It sounds like a lot. It's not. I have a picture of it. It's 20 small boxes is everything that we kept, and like 5 of those boxes is vintage video games. A couple of them is just like photos and that sort of thing, and winter jackets, things that we're not going to need in Mexico. And we made a very intentional list, a small list of things that we would need with us in the car, which is just the trunk and the back seat. And having to do with taking the car to Mexico, we did some prep to make sure the car was up for the trip. We're driving through a lot of mountains and desert to get to our final destination, and then we also, once we're down here, want to continue doing traveling, so we need to make sure that the car is super reliable. So we got an oil change. We required getting a new tire.
Ask me why you had to get a new tire.
A tune-up. Why did we need a new tire?
Because they friggin' drove over a screw right after I got the car tuned up in the lot.
They did?
Yeah, they did.
Oh.
The mechanic drove over a screw.
Awesome. So the car was good to go. We also, one step that I took to ensure that things go smoothly was setting up a digital mailbox and I don't know what you call it, but it's like a street address P.O. box. So we do have an address in New Orleans. A lot of places don't accept P.O. boxes, like filing taxes and your car registration. They require an actual street address, so this is basically a P.O. box that gives you a street address. And it's also what's called a digital mailbox, which I didn't know existed, but now I do. So letters or boxes that get shipped to our New Orleans address, they take a picture of it and email us and say, you got a letter. And then I can say, okay, please scan the documents of that letter and send them to me digitally. And we have a couple of checks having to do with the house sale and canceling our car insurance and some refunds that we're waiting on getting at that box, and then they're going to be able to scan those and send those to the bank for us, so we don't have to have things forwarded to Mexico, which is kind of tricky from what I'm reading. And yeah, I mentioned that we are going to need to keep our U.S. car registration, which requires a street address. As temporary residents, we're keeping our U.S. plated car, at least for now. Another thing that we did was last minute doctor appointments and health related things before leaving the country. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Oh, well, we just we got the okay from her Lyme doctor to travel, basically. And we started a new treatment with something called methylene blue, which is a super old medication that was developed for malaria like it's over 100 years old, and we started that, and well, anyway, we didn't get a ton of, I don't know, improvement with that. But anyway, the doctor,
We didn't do the right dosage the first time we tried it, so we're going to
Yeah.
try a different dosage the
Yeah.
next time.
the doctor told us we could probably get that here because they're a lot more liberal with their medicine regulations. And then what else did we do? We got antibody tests for the big C because we both had that a couple months ago. And actually, a medical doctor client of mine said, hey, if you have the antibody test, a more rational government, you have a positive antibody result, a more rational government might accept that as proof that you weren't, unclean, and then you might not have to, if there's any sort of legal requirement that you get the jabby, that might pass. So we did that, and to add to the goofiness of the whole situation, I tested positive for antibodies.
Off the charts.
Off the charts.
Literally off the charts.
Really anti.
He's got all the antibodies.
And she negative.
I tested 0 twice. I did the test
below
twice.
Whatever.
Below the threshold.
Below
yeah.
threshold. Yeah. So she tested for that twice just because we wanted to try and we see because anyway just kind of add a little piece of scientific information there to the whole puzzle.
Mm-hmm. And we also work with a hair mineral analysis doctor, which I don't know if you've talked about on your channel or much. I think I just very briefly touched on it in one of my Lyme videos. So we got a fresh hair mineral analysis before we left, which we do every 6 months, just to put off for 6 months having to figure out how to get something shipped from Mexico to the U.S. or back. So we got some health things taken care of before
We ordered
left.
we ordered several months worth of our
Several
supplements.
months of the supplements that I'm taking,
Vitamins
Evanes
and things.
too, vitamins, and canceled our Prime membership, getting away from Amazon, and so working on. We figured we'll take a couple months of supplements to get down to Mexico, and then figure out once we get there how we're going to get the rest of those. Another option that the hair mineral analysis doctor suggested is there are companies that let you have things shipped to them, and then they'll collect them, and when, say, you want something shipped from 3 different companies, they all arrive at this facility, they package them together, and then send them to Mexico on a secure, using a secure, the most recommended is FedEx or DHL, and that way you're saving on shipping because it's 1 package instead of 3, for example. But we figured we're gonna give ourselves some time to get here and get that figured out before we need to use that service. Another car prep thing we did that I didn't put on our list is we bought a GPS and we bought a dash cam.
Dash cam.
Yeah. So one of the potential risks of driving in Mexico is corrupt police officers asking for bribes. And from what I've read, they get angry if you pull out your cell phone camera. However, they are, if you have a prominently displayed dash cam with like a wire coming down so they can see it from the outside of your car, they are less likely to engage in bribery related activities. So we don't know for certain if that helped us or not. A couple people we talked to after we got down here, they're like, "You drove, man, awesome, wow, and you didn't have to pay any bribes."
We got pulled over. Should we talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
So, well, we didn't really pulled over. We got stopped as we were coming out of the toll booth, and it was because we're from Louisiana, and in Louisiana the cars only have 1 license plate on the back, and so they saw that we didn't have a license plate on the front, and they pulled us over for that. And they went through it's called a TIP. It's your vehicle import permit to import a car into Mexico, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But so they it was pretty obvious that the guy was going through our document trying to ding us on something. He was asking me dumb questions
He
like,
was there for like 5 minutes just
Yeah.
reading like the same 3 pages of our import permit
Yeah.
over and over, like just looking for something.
"Where are you coming from? Where are you going? That's a long drive, huh? Yeah," and then he just let us go. So, but
And it's very possible that it's because we had a prominently displayed dash cam, which we'll never know, but
just make eye contact. Just keep eye contact with the officers.
I had our passports out. He didn't ask for them, but I had them sitting on my lap so he could see that we had passports out and was ready to provide those.
Yeah. So with the toll roads,
So, yes, so in getting the GPS and the dash cam, we also planned our route based on a lot of recommendations from others who have driven in Mexico. The 3 main suggestions are to stick to toll roads, for the most part, drive inland instead of on the sea, and only drive during the day. So Evan did the brunt of the work in planning the route, coming up with the safest cities to stop at, how long to drive each day, and which specific roads to take. We planned our route from New Orleans down to our first main stop was in Mexico City. We planned to stay there for a week vacation, which didn't really happen because we had a bunch of paperwork to do. And then from Mexico City over to Puerto Vallarta. So after we started driving, we crossed the border and okay, so in preparing the boxes of belongings to potentially go to Japan, they have very, very strict requirements. We had to literally write every single thing that is in the box. You can't just write, this is a box of clothes. You have to write, there is 37 socks and, well, I don't know why there would be an odd number of socks, but you have to write every single thing that is in the box. So for crossing the border with all this stuff in our car, Evan's bringing, we made sure we weren't bringing anything on the no list, but, we just said we're bringing a couple months worth of supplements and vitamins, and like I always just feel like that's suspicious when I'm traveling with that. And, chef knives, just various things that might be like, why are you bringing this to Mexico? So I had also a very detailed list written out just in case. We didn't talk to anyone crossing the border.
yeah, they didn't look at us.
They just let us pass. Nobody checked that we had visas. Nobody saw our very heavy car hitting all of the speed bumps going over the border. Nobody.
Could have brought the old Mossberg.
Nope. Yeah. Nobody. We didn't talk to anyone crossing the border. And in fact, it's required that we needed to get what's called an FMM, which is part of the immigration process. It's sort of like getting a stamp on your passport. And we had to get our TIP, which is the import car permit. And we had to, like, there was no signs directing you where to that was.
So we had
or telling you that that's required. So if we hadn't read ahead of time.
We had to ask the guy selling peanuts.
The guy
where
selling
the
peanuts.
immigration
He
office
told
was.
us where to go. Because if we, for example, if we had turned right and gone into the border city, we would have been illegals. And so the man selling peanuts told us that we had to take a left and go to the
Immigration office.
immigration office.
And that was something that I don't think you'd have to do if you had the tourist visa. I think if you have a tourist visa, you just roll on through, which is why
they would still have to get the tip.
well,
And even if you
okay.
get your tip online, you still have to, even if you pay ahead of time, which a lot of people have problems with apparently, and they say we didn't receive your payment even though they have a receipt of payment, which is why I didn't do the tip online. You still have to go to the immigration and the tip office.
Okay. So going to the immigration and the tip office, what was that like?
It was a headache. I was very glad that our first night in Mexico, Evan planned our first stop to be in Monterrey, which was only a few hours over the border. Was very glad that our first stop was not very far across the border because the morning was kind of stressful.
Yeah. Well, we've remarked together that every time we have had dealings with a Mexican official, they've looked at our paperwork like they've never seen it before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
So
it took the guy calling his supervisor to
he
figure
was on the
out.
phone. He was arguing with the tip people. The immigration man went over to the tip office a couple of times to argue on our behalf that they were doing something wrong. Now looking back on it, it was comical. At the time, I was freaking out.
I was fine.
He's always fine. And I guess I'm always freaking out. So I guess it's kind of funny. Nobody checked us at the border.
They didn't give us a stamp.
No. We had to.
They didn't even look under our car with a mirror.
Mm-mm. Okay, so then our first night was in Monterey. Monterey, it was a stressful day. I don't want to judge Monterey on just the few short hours that I was there. Our second stop was in
San Luis Potosi.
which was adorable. I really, really liked that place. All of the places that we stopped, including Mexico City and then Guadalajara, there was a lot of cool things about them, and we had the little bit of time that we got to explore Mexico City was great. We really, really want to go back to Mexico City and explore all around there.
Well, we were
But
there
it's
for.
all really, really dry. All way too dry for us.
From the swamp.
We were getting nosebleeds coming from the swamp. Very desert, obviously.
Muy desierto.
That is not the case in Puerto Vallarta. As soon as we left, am I getting ahead of myself? Yeah, I am. Okay. So in Mexico City, we had planned for about a week vacation. But when we got there, maybe you can tell them about the immigration issues.
Yeah, we started looking into the immigration process.
Which, as we mentioned earlier, you have 30 days to complete the next steps. And our plan was to complete those steps in Mexico City and then go on to Puerto Vallarta when we were ready. We actually didn't even have that leg of the journey booked in Airbnbs. We only had Monterey, San Luis Potosi, and then a week in Mexico City booked, and then we were going to see if we wanted to stick around there a little longer and then go to Puerto Vallarta. But we got to Mexico City, started the next step of the immigration process, and quickly realized that we weren't really going to get a vacation.
So the big problem with the whole thing was just that we found out we had to have an appointment to get our temporary residency. There's some other things too, but I'm not going to talk about those. Okay. So we went online to make an appointment, and we figured we were going to do that in Mexico City because Mexico City is a big city, be faster than Puerto Vallarta. But we went online and found that we weren't going to be able to get an appointment until I think it was February for Mexico City, and the same was true. I think it was even later.
Our 30 days was up January
3rd. Right. So.
And to complicate things, the entire immigration branch of the government shuts down for 2 weeks for the holidays.
Right.
So we would have had until January 3rd, but they closed as of December 19th to January 3rd.
So we'd planned.
So we actually only had 10 business days to get everything done.
Yeah. So we planned to get to Mexico on November 15th, right after the sale of our house, but the first buyer fell through, and so we ended up postponing that until December 4th. So that really screwed us up. So don't plan to move to Mexico right before the holiday season.
Yeah, give yourself a full 30 days.
So we were just sweating bullets for, we spent 3 solid days.
We spent 3 days. There's a lot of requirements with getting copies of documents. We brought our printer to print things out, but our printer broke somehow between New Orleans and Mexico City. So we're trying to figure that out, how to get things printed out, and then our USB drive didn't work. So it was just like a comedy of errors causing us to spend 3 days to try to get all these documents printed out and prepared.
So, and and I'm a kind of a DIY guy, and I figure my Spanish is adequate for this whole task. So we really wanted to do it on our own, save some money, but we ended up just finding a lawyer off of a Facebook group.
And she was great.
Well, and the thing was of finding a lawyer is I'd emailed her, and she, so we weren't gonna get in for at least a month, okay? And I called the lawyer or emailed her, and I said, "Can you help us?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I know somebody at immigration. I'll get you in this week."
Yeah, she said, "Can you be in Puerto Vallarta on this date? We'll get you in before the holiday closure." So we had to cut Mexico City short by a day in order to get to Puerto Vallarta on time, which was fine. We're going to go back to Mexico City and actually have a vacation at some point. Because it was awesome.
So that's how Mexico works, guys. Everybody knows. You got to know somebody, and I like to call that the free market. But
and guess how much the immigration lawyer cost?
How much?
Less than $200 a person.
Wow. And the document, the fees were $200 or so each, right? So
yeah, I can go into the numbers.
Yeah.
I'll do a brief number wrap up before we finish this video.
Oh. Ooh. Okay. So tomorrow we're getting our temporary residency cards, right? After all this, so that's great. So we're making this video.
Yep. Tomorrow we get our cards. The lawyer emailed Evan today and said we just go pick them up. So we did it. And the reason we chose Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, pretty much just arbitrary. I've got a friend here whose dad owns a restaurant, and then Dani has a friend that she worked with who built a house in Jalapa, which is a little town south of here. You have to take a boat to get to. There's no cars or anything there. Everyone rides horses or four-wheelers. So pretty arbitrary. And we're hoping to meet another of my friends here from Oregon that I went to college with, but he's still stuck there, unfortunately.
So we initially thought, well, we have a couple of contacts in Puerto Vallarta. We've never been there. It looks nice. We also like that the climate is much more similar to New Orleans. As soon as we cross that mountain range and drop down onto the coast, no more bloody noses. It's not dry. The air is comfortingly humid. You also have an ocean breeze, so it's not like overwhelmingly hot. Just a really, really great climate. And also, it's a pretty touristy spot, so we don't want to settle, if we decide to stay in Mexico, we don't want to settle like necessarily in the city of Puerto Vallarta, but this is where all the photography gigs are going to be. So moving my business here is going to be relatively easy. The woman at the Mexico consulate in New Orleans said that she didn't think that was possible, and that if I got this temporary residency visa that I wouldn't be allowed to work for a year. But in talking with the immigration lawyer, it's only going to be a 1 to 2 month process that just involves going to an accountant, getting a couple of documents, and I think she said it was going to cost like $300, and then I can officially be self-employed in Mexico. Looking at some costs, just very briefly, I'm not going to go over all of this, but please let us know if you're interested in detailed costs. I wrote out everything that we spent to get here, which is not necessarily the same as what other people are going to spend to get here. But I can tell you that the cost of renewing 2 passports for 10 years from the United States was $275. The cost of just the various visa and immigration documents to get to Mexico for both of us was $500. The immigration lawyer was $380. And then we spent about $100 getting copies, prints, and tiny photos, and that sort of thing. So our total for the visas, immigration documents, lawyer, and copies, prints, and photos was $975 for both of us. If we had gone without the lawyer, it would have been $600. If we had, which we probably would have done without the lawyer if we hadn't had the 2-week holiday closure to deal with. So that's pretty great. Less than $1,000 for both of us for all of the documents. And I should note that some of the copies and prints and photos were unnecessary. So that was money that we didn't actually need to spend, even though the website told us that we did. And the mail forwarding service, the cost to set that up, they had some verification steps, and also that costs $165. And then I also spent $5 setting up the United States Postal Service mail forwarding, which only lasts a month. And then I also, that was $1, and then I spent $4 getting us removed from the junk mail list and the pre-approved loan removal. So, because we just get those things all the time.
Worth it.
And with the digital mailbox, you have to pay extra if you get more than 30 letters a month. So I spent $5 to get us removed from the junk mail and the credit card junk mail thing. So we have yet to receive any junk mail at our digital mailbox, which is awesome. That's $5 well spent. So all of that was $170. And actually the most expensive part of our trip was just getting the car here. So if that was not part of your immigration process, then you obviously would be buying plane tickets, which we didn't, and there would be other expenses involved. So we spent, let's see, some car expenses. We spent $355 on the oil change, tune-up, and getting a tire. We spent $225 purchasing a dash cam and a GPS. Gas and toll roads from New Orleans to Mexico was $300. And Airbnbs and rentals here are really, really affordable. So all of our stops on the way down, we spent $215. That doesn't include the week in Mexico City. That is one, I included one night of Mexico City in that. So if we were to come straight down, it would have been $215. And post-trip, we got a car wash because we drove through. It was the dustiest I'd ever seen the car, and I just didn't want to attract attention that way, which was $10. And which obviously that could have been cheaper if we had done it ourselves. And we got we're getting another oil change, which is going to cost $75. So all in, and then the temporary import permit for the car, that costs $380 for us up front. It depends on what year your car was made. They have like a sliding scale. But $320 of the $380 is considered a deposit, and we get that back when we take the car out of the country to sell it, which we'll do probably eventually.
Don't tell the grandma wheel that.
Yeah, yep, that car has served us well. So in total, including the gas and driving and staying at the Airbnbs instead of flying, we spent $1,775 to get the car here instead of buying plane tickets. But that allowed us to bring a car full of belongings too. So I think that was money well spent. Our total amount of money spent, which also includes, as we mentioned, the extra doctor's appointments and antibody tests and everything we mentioned in the video, is a grand total of $3,900 to get us to Mexico.
And a lot of that stuff that other people aren't going to have to deal with, but
yeah, the bare minimum for just documents, we spent $3,900 because of everything we mentioned, but the bare minimum of just documents would be $350 a person.
To start a new life in Mexico. So, all right, thanks for that. What a detail-oriented gal she is. And speaking of a future life in Mexico or elsewhere, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So right now we are staying at short-term rental Airbnb. I'm just using Airbnb because it's familiar to us, and we were hosts for 4 years. But I've also done a lot of comparing staying at Airbnbs versus furnished rentals, which are really common here as well. And the reason that I am choosing Airbnb is because then we don't, the furnished rentals usually come with water, garbage, and internet. But then you have to pay your own electricity, and that's because a lot of people that come here from other places need like their AC set at 60 degrees and really rack up the electric bills.
Did I mention we don't have a window?
We don't have a window. So, of course, in Airbnb, the electricity is included. Although I did see a couple of listings where they said if you're staying during these hot months, your electricity might be extra, so that's something to look out for. But either way, whether we were renting furnished apartments and then paying for the electricity or renting Airbnbs, I just like to know the flat rate up front. I like to know what I'm paying ahead of time rather than being surprised by an electric bill in a country that I'm unfamiliar with. We are able to find places that are, I would say, $300 to $600 a month. Renting furnished or renting on Airbnb. Our month right now, our month of January, we're spending $450 to stay in this nice little place, and after that, we're looking at house sitting, which is something that I didn't know existed, but I'm really excited about. House sitting is pretty popular in Mexico. There's a lot of people who like snowbird here or are only here part-time, or just go on vacations and they need people to either just watch their house or their pets and or gardens, and you get to stay there for free. So we've signed up with a house sitting website. I'm actually waiting on a call from our first house sit that I've applied for, which is for 3 weeks in April. So that's a really exciting possibility, which will take us to different parts of the country and give us all kinds of different experiences while we're learning our way around Mexico.
All right, and you're gonna move your business.
I'm going to move my business
Mention
here.
that a little bit.
I already mentioned that. Yeah, should be a fairly easy process and should cost only about $300. And hoping to start a new, slower paced lifestyle, which a lot of Mexico seems to be embracing anyways.
Mañana.
So
They get the job done, guys. You don't gotta work so hard.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be making a lot more videos, as I mentioned. I think I mentioned already. So please, look forward to that and stay tuned. I'm gonna try and make this into an income stream for us. Keeping talking about the event that we're not allowed to talk about, which is what I've been mainly focusing on these 2 years. I've got some videos recorded back in New Orleans that I've yet to upload, so please don't be alarmed by any continuity errors that might entail. And so I'm working. I started a job online translating, just so you know, translating documents from different languages into English. And on my own, I'm going to start translating the works of the great 19th century French microbiologist Antoine Béchamp. So I'm starting with this book, which is biography of him by Marie Clerc, who wrote this for her doctoral thesis. She's a pharmacist. I got through the intro, and then I've got
And it's only in French.
right. This is in French, so I'm translating this from French into English. And then the works of the man himself. Basically, there's only one of his books that have been translated, and I'm going to translate the rest of them. So wish me luck. And here's volume 1 and volume 2. Of course, this is just one of his works. Is basically the microzymes is what this is called. Some groundbreaking work in microbiology, which was ripped off and misunderstood by Louis Pasteur, the fraud and plagiarist. But that's what I'm going to be getting into. I've got a Rumble account. I've got all the other hosting programs, websites you can look forward to finding.
We're working on getting those updated, so he's getting new graphics and a little makeover, and so all of his channels will be consistent with, what is it, Rumble, BitChute,
all of them, whatever. Leave it a note. Tell me to do one, and I'll do it. Okay, because I got time. I got a Telegram. My Telegram is down below. I got a Steemit account that's really old, and Steemit's pretty lame. But sometimes I make some blog entries there as well. And then we're hoping to encourage old Dani Dogg to make some videos of her own, which she used to do.
Yeah, I think I can get back to that. And then just on a personal note, we're going to spend this time to decide, is Mexico or Japan right for us? We like Mexico so far. It's been a good month, but we're going to be contacting a Japanese immigration lawyer just to find out what all of our options are and exactly what that would entail. The border to Japan is still closed, so it's going to be an undetermined amount of time. We're leaning towards trying to get to Japan, but we'll see what the future holds, and also just hopefully a lot of babies.
If we figure it out, how that happens.
Yeah.
All right, so that's about it, I guess. Did we cover everything?
I think so.
All right, I think we covered everything. That was our process of moving to Mexico, and so I hope that helps you out if you're in the same boat as us. I know a lot of that applies to our specific situation, and it might not apply to yours, but it'll give you an idea of the various types of things you're going to have to deal with. Health conditions. Everyone's got a different kind of car situation, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's just our individual situation. I'm going to be making a series of videos about the different Latin American countries' responses to the thing that we can't talk about, and how that might affect your decision to move to each of those. So you can look forward to that coming up.
And please let me know specifically if you're interested in more of the finances and the details. I would.
She's got spreadsheets.
I don't have spreadsheets yet. It's all, well, I do, but it's
She will.
I would need to be encouraged to make more videos about that and to know specifically what would be interesting and helpful. So if there's anything specifically that we touched on today that you'd like to see more details, I'd be happy to share.
But she's going to make the spreadsheets anyway. So that's it for us. Evan Benton here and Dani Benton, my lovely wife. So share this video if you would. Subscribe to our channels on all the platforms. Think about supporting us if you can. And stay tuned for future updates from our journey abroad. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good night.